Hello and welcome back to the another episode of Daily News Quiz Analysis for IAS Prelims 2025. It is 10th January today, and in this video we are going to solve different types of questions which are very much relevant for your preparation. Before we'll start solving these questions, before we'll start discussing these questions, I would like to give the brief introduction about the video, about this initiative, so that if you are new to our channel, you will get more connected with it. And if you are our regular visitor, then I would recommend you guys to fast forward few minutes so that you will jump directly to the discussion part. Coming back to our introduction part, in this video, we basically try to discuss different types of questions. And if we will break them down into the different parts, it would come under three different sets, or we can say three different parts. In the first part of our discussion, we try to discuss with respect to the current affairs topics. You know what we do? We take up the most important articles from the newspapers. We break them down into the simplest language possible, and we try to derive the possible prelims based questions from those particular articles, so that it will give you the idea how you should, what your approach should be when you are reading the newspapers, what part of the newspaper is important for your preparation, and also it will give you the idea how the questions can be asked from these particular articles. After we will complete first part of our video, first part of our discussion, we will shift our approach to the another part of our discussion, where we will take up some static topics. We are doing this from last few months now, and right now we are discussing currently Indian polity. And in Indian polity, we are discussing fundamental duties clause by clause. Today, we will discuss a clause in fundamental duty and try to find out how the UPSC can ask a question from that particular clause of the fundamental duty. So this is what we are going to do in the another part of our discussion, in the second part of our discussion. After solving questions with respect to current affairs and the static part, we shift our approach to the last part of our discussion, where we discuss questions directly, where we discuss few previous year questions basically. What we do? We take up every day a previous year question. We try to discuss them. We try to find out the ways and methods by which we can solve that question if we don't have the proper knowledge. We try to find out, how UPSC tries to deceive the aspirant, and we will try to find out at the same time how UPSC wants you to qualify the exam if you don't have the proper knowledge. So this is all what we are going to do in the third part of our discussion. So this is what we are going to do in this video. Now, before we will start solving these questions, before we will start the discussion part, I would recommend you guys one thing which I believe if you will follow, it is going to help you in many ways in clearing your exam. And that is, if you are watching this video, please do one thing: start noting down these questions. Develop your own question bank before your exams are there. When your exams are there, when only few days are left, the human tendency is like that. We want to go through everything what we had studied. We want to go for the last mile revision, but time does not permit us to do so. So what will you do at that time? If you have these questions with you, you would just go through these questions would connect you with the current affairs, it will connect you with the static part, it will connect you with the previous year questions. So it is indirectly going to boost your confidence before the exam, as well as as our sources are same as what the UPSC is going to use. Many questions can be coincide, many questions can be the same, in same way the questions can be asked. Many questions can coincide, many statements can coincide, or if not the questions or the statements, but trust me, concepts would definitely come what we are discussing here. So this is going to be a game changing for you if you will have these questions with you at that time. You would want to go through the last mile revision, and you will have that through these questions. So that's what I want from you. Please do one thing: do note down these questions, develop your own question bank. Now with this, I would like to request you guys, please do subscribe the channel, share it with your friends so that they may also get benefited from this initiative, and do write in the comments what do you feel about the video. Now with this, let's start with the first question. Let's see what is the first question which we had brought today. As we can see it here on the screen, the question is about the selection of the chief election commissioner and the election commissioners in India. Why we had brought this question here? What is the reason why from nowhere we had brought this question? The reason for that is the Supreme Court is about to take up the pleas challenging chief election commissioner and election commissioner appointment law in Feb in next month. Supreme Court is what it is going to do. It is going to take up the pleas which are challenging the appointment of Chief Election Commissioner and Election Commissioners Law, which was framed last year by the Government of India. So, it is basically this, this topic basically talks about the appointment of the Chief Election Commissioners and Election Commissioners. So, with this regard, let's first see what does the Constitution say. In our Constitution, we have Article 324. There are few things in our Constitution which, when the framers of the Constitution, they framed this Constitution, they kept a few things for the Parliament to decide. So is the case with the appointment of election commissioners and the chief election commissioners. Here, article, first of all, let's try to understand what are the key points of the Article 324 here. First of all, it talks about, election commission shall consist of chief election commissioners and commissioner and election commissioners. First thing, the election commission. First thing, what does it talk about? It talks about that election commission, it should consist of chief election commissioners and election commissioners. This is what it first says. The election commission should consist of chief election commissioners and election commissioners. Second thing, what it says about its appointment. The appointment shall be subjected by the provisions of law made by the Parliament. So here is the catch. It says the appointment of these chief election commissioners and election commissioners, it should be subjected by the provisions of law made by the Parliament. This is the second condition in this article. Then which we have to discuss. Third thing which you should know, President has to make appointment on his name. Once this Parliament, it decides by what law they are going to select the candidate, then the President, that candidate would be appointed on the name of the President. So final authority is with President. He will appoint the person on his name. So these are the few important things which are in Article 324. First, there should be election commissioners and chief election commissioners in election commission. Second, appointment shall be subjected by the provisions of law made by Parliament. And the third, President has to make appointment by on his name. So with respect to this, now, when earlier we know that it was a single body election commission, then it became multi-layered body, it became multi-member body. So with respect to this, there was no clear statement, there was no clear body which would appoint these, which would recommend these names of these election commissioners or chief election commissioners. We have the law, namely, in 1991 we had framed a law. The Parliament had framed a law which talks about the Chief Election Commission and election commissioners. The name of that law is Election Commission's Conditions of Service of Election Commission, Conditions of Service of Election Commissioners and Transaction of Business Act 1991. But it does not talk about the selection criteria. It does not talk about the selection criteria. So with this regard, as there was the absence of law, the Supreme Court took the cognizance and it framed up in the case named Anu Barwal case 2023. Supreme Court take up the cognizance and they framed the body. They told that they are going to frame a body who will be responsible for selecting the candidate. And according to Supreme Court, what does the body what are the members of that body? Who are the members of that body? It is PM. It is leader of opposition, and it is the CJI, Chief Justice of India. They are going to select the names. They are going to forward the names to the President for the appointment of the election commissioners and Chief Election Commissioner. But with this regard, when this judgment was given in 2023 in Anu Barwal case, you should know that the name of the case is Anu Barwal, basically, it is the name of the case. So in this, the Supreme Court made the judgment that if there is no law which talks about what should be the selection committee, what should it consist of, let's make the committee. And they made this committee which consists of PM, which consists of leader of opposition, and which consists of Chief Justice of India. So with this regard, when Supreme Court gave this statement, when Supreme Court gave this judgment, what happened? it was overturned by the law. The parliament came into its senses, and they they overturned it, and they brought a law, namely the election. They came up with the law, the chief election commissioners and other election commissioners appointment, conditions of service, and term of office act 9 term of office act 2023. What is the name of the law which they came up with? The chief election commissioners and other election commissioners appointment, conditions of service, and term of office act 2023. They came up with that, and in this they gave a different selecting body, and that's what we have today. Right now, that's what, and that body consists of, which is given by the law, which is that consists of PM, leader of opposition. But CGI, he was removed from this panel, and instead of him, who was added? It was the union cabinet minister nominated by PM. It is union cabinet minister nominated by PM. So he became the member of this panel, and they would recommend the names to the president. So this is all. This is the story. This is the background story of the selection of chief election commissioners and election commissioners. With this regard, as we can see here, this there is the there as election commission, it is the independent body, and the main idea about the independent body is it should be away from the overreach of the executive. It should be away from the overreach of these political parties, political exposure. So if if for the candidature, for the selection of the election commissioner and election commissions, if the executive is that much responsible, if it is their choice, we can directly see here that PM and union cabinet minister, they can easily overturn any decision in their favor. So there, the independence of this body will get compromised. So with this respect, the validity of the section under this act, under the chief election commissioners and other election commissioners appointment, condition of service, and term of office act 2023, the validity of the section 7.1, the validity of the section 7 1 7 clause 1, it will get challenged in the Supreme Court, and with this regard, the Supreme Court will take the petitions in next month. In the next month, they will start taking the petitions with this concept, with this selection body, which was given by this act, which was framed in 2023 by the parliament. And here we need to know currently who are the members of the panel. It is PM, it is the leader of opposition, and it is the union cabinet minister appointed by the prime minister. So with this, I hope you had got the basic idea about why we had brought this question, what was the need of this question, and let's try to solve this question now and get more idea about the election commissioners and chief election commission. Here the first question says, first statement about this, it says the chief election commissioners and here it says that chief election commissioners and the election commissioners are appointed by the President of India, till then 100% correct, based on the recommendations of a collegium, recommendation consisting of the prime minister, the leader of opposition, 100% correct, leader of opposition 100% correct. In the Lok Sabha, this is what you have to know, leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha, and the chief justice of India, totally incorrect. It is not chief justice of India, but it is the union cabinet minister appointed by the PM. So this first statement, it is incorrect. Second statement, the election commission of India is a multi-membered body. It is a multi-membered body consisting of the chief election commissioner and two other election commissioners, all of whom hold office for a term of 6 years or until the age of 65 years, whichever is earlier. 100% correct, nothing with this statement. Third statement, the process of removal of chief election commissioner and the election commissioners is similar to the procedure for removing a judge of the Supreme Court, requiring a 2/3 majority in both houses of the parliament. 100% correct, nothing wrong with statement either. So with respect to this question, the correct statements are statement 2 and statement 3. So here, with respect to this question, I hope you had got the basic idea about the election commission. You had got the basic idea about the selecting panel of election, selecting panel for the appointment of election commissioners and election commissioner. What is currently, what law we are following, who are the members of this panel. I hope you had understood that. With this, let's move to the another question and try to solve that. Here the question, second question, it talks about, basically it talks about the slowdown in Indian economic growth, and it says, which of the following factors, factors have contributed significantly to the recent slowdown in Indian economic growth. So why we had brought this question here, because there was an article basically 3 days back when it showed that this time the real GDP touched 4 years low. The real GDP this year touched real GDP touched uh, 4 years low. So this is basically a concern about a real GDP. We should know that it is real GDP in which inflation is adjusted. Real GDP is that GDP in which inflation is adjusted. Inflation is adjusted. So here, this article now, the article in today's newspaper, it gives us the reason why it is so that there is significant slowdown in India's economic growth. And to this, the article, it basically highlights two important things which I understood from it. The first thing, it highlighted that the measurement, the uh, the data captured, the way we are capturing the data, the way we are capturing data in India, it is very much incorrect. Basically, for the GDP deflator, to know from the GDP deflator is used when we need to, we have the nominal GDP and we want to go back to understand the real GDP. For that, we need the GDP deflator. It gives us what is the real GDP. And to find that in this method, we have different ways to find it. And what the article here says that, as per the IMF recommendations and what the world is doing now, they believe that IMF and the world, they believe that the best way to understand the real, to understand the real GDP, to understand and to use in the GDP deflator, is to go through the PPI index, which is producer price index. So according to this, they believe that, according to IMF, they believe that it should be the producer price index which should be used to understand the real GDP. But what we are doing in India, we are using WPI index, wholesale price index. And the reason they are giving that to this is that this PPI index, it contains both goods and services. The wholesale price index, it does not contain services. Second thing, the PPI, it collects all the data, how much was spent by the producers, while a wholesale price index, what it collects is, it only collects the data as wholesale price. It is just a distributor from one entity to the another. So what IMF and other world banks suggest is that the country should favor PPI index or consumer price index rather than WPI index. But in India, we are using WPI index, and it is very much volatile. And it gives us the insignificant data. This is one of the reasons why there is that our GDP growth is slowing down. And the second reason, what the author here highlights, that we had spent lots of money in different schemes from last 10 years. For example, we had came up with Make in India. With respect to Make in India, we had brought up PLI schemes, we have brought up Sickle India, and we have done different budgetary cuts. So the main reason for all this was to incentivize the private industries, to increase the private investment in our country, to increase the private investment to our can to increase private investment in our country. But unfortunately, it has been found that the private investment has also increased. Because of this, sorry, decreased. The private investment has decreased from 9% to the 6.4%. So there is this much decrease in the private investment. So in still, as we are going for different schemes, we are going for PLI schemes, we came up the idea of make in India, but still we are not able to attract the private investment. Still the public investment is increasing in our country. And also, with respect to that, the agriculture, and the agriculture, it has been the main source of our growth in the GDP. The agriculture and other stuff, other things related to it has been the main source of our GDP growth, which has happened. Rather, and rest of the things where we needed the private investment, the private investment has been very low. What we thought it would be. So we are not able to attract the private investment. Second thing, the deflator which we are using, GDP deflator, we are using the IMF, which gives us the wrong data. Basically, it does not contain both goods and services. It only contains the goods, it does not contain services. And also it is very much volatile. It is just IMF, sorry, WPI. WPI, what it helps in, it is just it serves it just acts as a distributor from one entity to the consumers, from the producers to the consumers. So it is a way, it just gives the value addition and nothing else. So according to the IMF and other world banks, they believe that the countries should go for the producer price index or CPI when they go for the GDP deflators. So this is the whole concept what this article talks about, why there is slowdown. Let me recap why there is slowdown, because the article highlights majorly two reasons here. The article highlights majorly two reasons here. First, we have the wrong deflator. We are using WPI instead of PPI. Second, the private investment, we are not able to attract the private investment as we believed it would be. So these are the major reasons why there is slowdown in our economy. So with respect to this question, now let's try to understand it and get more idea about it. Here the question says, which of the following factors have contributed significantly to the recent slowdown in India's economy? Declining household savings rate. When there is inflation, there would be definitely a decline in household savings rate, 100% correct. Stressed assets in the banking sector, 100% correct. We are not able to pay the loans and all that. Weakening global demand and trade tensions, 100% correct. Third, structural issues in the agricultural sector, 100% correct. So with respect to this question, all the four statements are correct, and all the four statements are reason for the decline in or slowdown in India's economic growth. So with this, I hope you had understood the topic itself, what are the major two reasons which the author talks about, and also the question here. Now with this, let's move to the another question and try. Now coming back to the another question of today's discussion, it is about the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, section 152 of BNS. Why we had brought this question? Because today the Rajasthan High Court, in the newspaper, it was mentioned that Rajasthan High Court said that this section of BNS, it should not be dubbed as the new form of sedition. So what does the Rajasthan High Court say? Rajasthan High Court said that section 152 of BNS should not be dubbed as we can say dubbed as it should not be dubbed as new form of sedition. So here we need to understand what this sedition is, and to understand what this sedition is, we need to understand section 124. We need to understand section 124A of IPC. If we will understand that, then only we would understand what this sedition is. So to understand this section 124A of IPC, we need to go little bit back into the history and see when it was brought in. It was basically 1817. When this section 124, section 124A was brought in what? It was brought in IPC. It was added in IPC. So section 124A was added. So what does it say? It used to say, as it has been removed as we removed IPC itself, we replaced IPC by BNS. It used to say it is an offense. Sedition is an offense under which any person bringing or attempts to bring into hatred and bringing or attempts to bring hatred or contempt. Second is contempt, insults the government, talks bad against the government. Third, or excites or attempts to excite disaffection towards the government established by law. Once the government is established by law, if any person tries to bring hatred or contempt or excites or attempts to excite disaffection towards the government, he would be framed under sedition and he would be punished, and the punishment would vary from 3 years to whatever that may be. Why this sedition law was brought in? The basic reason was the intolerance from the Muslim community during that time. There was new wave in Muslim community. They At that time they blamed everything bad which happened to them, it was because of the British government. So to curb that, the British government came up with sedition, section 124A of 124A of IPC, section 124A of IPC. So this, when we got our independence, the framers of the constitution, they decided to keep it in the IPC. They did not remove it. They decided to keep it in IPC so that there would be there would be no that disturbance, as it was the time when we had seen the huge partition. We had already seen the partition, and there were violences everywhere. People were there were in different places, people were talking bad about the country itself. So it was important for that, it was very much important at that time to keep this section alive in the IPC. When the time moved, there had been different judgments given by different high courts, and finally the Kedarnath Singh versus State of Bihar in 1962, different judgments were given, and in final judgment Kedarnath Singh versus State of Bihar in 1962, this section 124A of IPC, it was upheld. So it was upheld. So with respect to this is the nutshell backstory of section 124A. In the last year, we saw that how IPC was removed, and the government clearly said that they are not going to repeat the sedition law in the BNS. But here we have a section in BNS, we have a section 152. What we have? We have section 152, which very much resembles in nature to it. This section 152, it very much resembles with the section 124A of IPC, but it is not directly called as sedition. So here the Rajasthan High Court said it should not be dubbed this section 152 of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, it should not be dubbed as the law of sedition. So here we need to understand what this section 152 say, and that we would understand through this question. Now let's see what does the question say. It says, with reference to section 152 of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, which of the following statements are correct? First statement, it deals with the offences against the state, specifically those that endanger the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India. 100% correct, but here is a problem. It does not clarify what are those offences. It talks about if anything which endanger the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India, it would be, he would be punished. But what are these things? For example, if you don't like any policy from the government, and there are certain supporters of the government which would like that, and certain people which won't like that, if you will criticize that policy, would you be framed under this? So this is, these terms are very much vague, these are not well defined. That is what the people who oppose it, they say that it should be very much, these things should be clearly defined, these things should be very much clearly laid down, that what are the actions which endanger the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India. So with respect to this question, the first statement is correct. Second statement, it criminalizes the acts that excite or attempts to excite secession or armed rebellion, regardless of intent. Intent is very much important, so this statement becomes incorrect. Third statement, it includes within its ambit expressions of disapprobation of government measures aimed at obtaining their alteration by lawful means. Totally incorrect. Totally again is this separate. So with respect to this question, the correct statement is option A. Why we brought this question? Because there was discussion, the Rajasthan High Court, it said that this section 152 of the BNS, it should not be dubbed as the Sedition Act, which used to be in IPC under 124A. So with this, I hope you had understood the topic, you had understood the question itself. Now with this, let's move to the another question and try to understand that. Here the question is with respect to Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016. Let's see what does the question say. Question says, regarding the rights of persons with disabilities Act 2016, which of the following statements is are correct? Why we had brought this question? You know why we had brought this question? Because of the plea which was in the Supreme Court, and it was accepted by the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court gave its decision with respect to that. Basically, when this law was framed, Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act in 2016, in 2017 its rules were given. In 2017 its rules were given. In the act itself, in the Persons with Disabilities Act 2016, there were rights of persons with disabilities, and it contains different sections. This act contained different sections. And what are those sections? You need to know. This section 40, it is 44, it is 45, 46, and it is 89. So these are the sections in this Persons Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act. It contains these sections, and and one of the major essence of these sections was that the accessibility to government buildings. It was mandatory for the government, whenever they will go for the construction of any government building, that they have to make it accessible to every person, to persons with disabilities. For example, there should be lifts available. There should be ramps should be available for the people to walk properly. If anybody is not able to walk, there should be lifts available, and all that stuff which are essential for persons with the disability. But unfortunately, when in 2017 they framed this law, when they framed the rules with respect to this law, they said that it is not must, it is not essential for them, but they should try to achieve this. In 2017, their rules they framed, in these rules they said that it is not necessary for us to construct these things, to contain these things which will make government buildings accessible to these people. We should try to achieve this, but it is not mandatory. In 2017, in its rules, they said that it is not mandatory. It is not mandatory. So it is totally against what the law said, what the law itself said, and rules totally opposite it. And it is the rule number 17, basically. Rule 15, it is rule 15 which replaced it from must to mandatory. Rule 15, it replaced the sections in the act itself. As we saw here, that section 40, 44, 45, 46, and 89, it made it mandatory for the government to make these government buildings accessible to these persons with disabilities. Having different disabilities, according to their disabilities, they should construct the building. But when they framed the rules of this act, they made it mandatory. They did not made it must. So this is what was in the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court struck down this rule. It struck down this as unconstitutional. So Supreme Court of India has struck down the Rule 15 of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016, when its rules were framed basically in 2015. Right of persons with disabilities, when its rules were framed in 2017 itself, sorry, not 2015, 2017, and they brought up Rule 15, and it was very much against the ethics, against the sections of this act which were in section 40, 44, 45, 46, and 89. So with respect to this, the Rule 15 has been struck down by the Supreme Court, and that's why we are discussing this question here. Now we need to understand the basics of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, and that we would understand through this question. Here the question says, regarding the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016, which of the following statements are correct? First, it recognizes 21 specified disabilities, expanding the list from the previous 7 under the Persons with Disabilities, Equal Opportunities, Protection of Rights, and Full Participation Act 1995. 100% correct. Second, it mandates reservation in government jobs for persons with benchmark disabilities at 5% of vacancies in each cadre. No, it is not 5%, but it is 4%. So this is also incorrect. Third statement, it defines persons with benchmark disability as a person with not less than 40% of a specified disability, where specified disability has been defined in measurable terms. 100% correct. So with respect to this question, the correct statements are statement 1 and statement 3. So with this, why we discuss this question? Because the rule 15 of this act was struck down by the Supreme Court. So with this, let's move to the another question and try to solve. Here the question is with respect to the Genome India program. Here question is with respect to Genome India program. Let us see why we had brought this question. Because out of 4,600 out of 4,600 groups of our population, out of 4,600 groups of our population, 83 groups have their genome sequence available. Have 83 out of the 4,600 groups of our population, 83 groups have their genome sequence available. So their genome sequence is available. So with this, we would understand through this question what it was about. First statement, this is little context behind this question. 83 groups of our population, their genome sequence is available. So to understand more about the Genome India program, we will understand it through this question. First statement, it is a pan-India initiative. It is a pan-India initiative to create a reference genome database of the Indian population representing its diverse genetic makeup. 100% correct. To understand the diverse genetic makeup of our people, for example, for the medication purposes and other reasons, for the healthcare reasons, so it becomes very much important for us to understand the genetics of our people. So that's why it was brought in, and this is what it is about. Second statement, the program is solely funded and implemented by the Department of Biotechnology, Ministry of Science and Technology. Totally incorrect. It is funded by different institutions, so it is not solely funded by the Department of Biotechnology. Third statement, the primary objective of the Genome India program is to facilitate advancements in precision medicine and personalized healthcare tailored to the Indian population. 100% correct. Nothing wrong with this statement. So with respect to this question, the correct statements are statement 1 and statement 3, and from the code given below, the correct code would be option A. With this, we complete today's discussion with respect to the current affairs questions. I hope you had understood them. Now with this, let's move to the another part of our discussion where we will solve the static topic question. Here today's static topic question is about the Article 51A Clause J of the Indian Constitution, as it deals with the fundamental duties. With respect to fundamental duties, we know few things which I would like to repeat here. It was not initially part of the Constitution. Second, it was added through the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. Third, it was Sovereign Singh Committee which recommended it. Sovereign Singh Committee. Fourth, we got inspired from USSR. Fifth, these are not enforceable by law. You cannot go to the court if if we are not following them. So these are few points with respect to fundamental duties. Now with respect to this clause J, let's try to understand this through this question what it is about. Here the question says Article 51A Clause J of the Indian Constitution, which deals with fundamental duties, pertains to first statement, safeguarding public property and adjourning violence. No, it is basically the clause H of the Article 51A. Second, developing the scientific temper, humanism and the spirit of inquiry. No. Third, striving towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity, so that the nation constantly rises to higher levels of endeavor and achievement. 100% correct. So with respect to this question, Article 51A subclause J, it states it pertains to striving towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity, so that the nation constantly rises to higher levels of endeavor and achievement. So with respect to this question, the correct statement is statement C. With this, we complete the another part of our discussion where we take up the static topic. And with this, we'll shift our approach to the last part of our discussion where we'll see a previous year question and we'll try to find out what type of question is that. Here the question is basically very much factual question, as right now we are discussing questions from physical geography. This is very factual, and in such questions, one thing, we cannot do much. We cannot give a wise guess here. We cannot give the intelligent guess here because it is very much factual. So to any question like that, if you don't have the proper knowledge, what you should do, it is better for you to leave that. You should not give the unnecessary guess. If question is like that where you have to talk about the facts, don't give the unnecessary guess. Don't get the negative marks there. If it was statement based, in statement based questions you have different ways to solve them, but as it is fact based, you cannot do much about that. So let's see what does the question say and wind up our discussion today. Here the question says, who among the following was the first state that who among the following was the first to state who among the following was first to state that the earth was spherical? Who was he Copernicus? Was he Ptolemy? Was it Strabo? No, he was Aristotle. Something around 250, I guess 250 BC, he gave that the earth is spherical. And with this, we complete today's discussion. I hope you would like the video. I hope you would share it with your friends, and I definitely hope you would subscribe the channel. Thank you very much for staying with me. Thank you. Have a nice day.